How's it going, YouTube? I'm not looking at favorable figures right now, but I thought these figures might be worth mentioning. There's been quite a bit of comparison to. There's been quite a bit of comparison wrongly made when comparing influenza and the SARS-CoV-2 virus that causes COVID-19. Early on, it was touted. I think this was in mid-February sometime. It was touted that, the flu has killed 16,000 people already this year. And therefore, excuse me just a second, let me get plugged in. And therefore, what's all the hype about this coronavirus? And there was more to it than that. And there still is more to it than that in terms of what people are suggesting with some of the different outlandish ideas that you'll find on YouTube. But we're going forward here to a point now where we are just about 7 days away from watching the death toll, the daily death toll of the coronavirus, surpass the daily death toll of influenza. We're actually technically already within the window that is spelled out in relation to the daily death toll of influenza related deaths, because that range is somewhere between, I'll flip over to that screen here in a minute, but it's somewhere between 780 and 1740, something like that. So how do I know this? How do we know this? There's been a lot of very smart people online that have put out some exceptional content that has been highly informative relating to all things coronavirus related. Doctors putting out content, all kind of stuff that's been just excellent information. Maybe I should say tremendous, right? Everything's tremendous. All right, that's a joke, inside joke. The virus is tremendously contained. I guess somebody was wrong on the national stage at one point, but whatever. All right. A lot of you guys probably are reading into what I'm saying there, but anyway, it is what it is. True and accurate information. That's what's always appreciated. So let's take a look at this particular chart, which indicates the total death of novel coronavirus, and spells it out day over day over about the last 57 days. You can see the change in total percentage out to the right. So, for example, from March 18th to March 19th, the number on the 18th, that was 8,951 total deaths globally, went up by 12%, which was 1,080 new deaths, resulting in a total amount of deaths of 10,031. So you see how that reads, and that is the day over day representation that this particular chart illustrates. If you go down that right side column, you look at the varying percentages that are indicated there. There's a number of different things that go into the changes from day to day that have occurred over time. All types of things like the amount of testing, the amount of reporting in general, the point in time in which China seemed to sign off in terms of its reporting. Supposedly that reason is because of the lockdown measures and the success that has resulted from that. Hopefully that's true. But nonetheless, it gives us an idea of an average in terms of the day over day growth rate in terms of the death toll as a percentage. So adding up that right side column and dividing by 57, you wind up with about a 10 or 11% average, which falls in line to where we seem to have kind of settled out here over the last several days, which is, around 12, 10, 11, 12%. And as this virus has made its way around the world pretty much completely at this point, I think the trends are starting to be a little more apparent. But if we use the figure 10% day-over-day change in total, we can do a little forecasting here. And we can start with this current death tally of 10,031 and go from there. I'm just going to use an even 10,000. And on the following day, if we have a 10% increase, we go to 11,000. That's day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, and this is where we see, this next day on day 7 is where we see a level of new deaths that occur in a single day that is at the very upper level of the estimated number of daily deaths associated with influenza. So we're at 17,715, and we go to 19,487, which is about 1,700. And of course, as we saw just today, we saw an actual 12% daily change. So you can figure in about 7 days, we're going to see the coronavirus start to kill more people each day than does influenza. So, and we've known why that was going to happen, essentially, because it's more contagious. One person gives it to 2.5, maybe 3 people, whereas the flu, typically speaking, is one person gives it to one other person. So the stuff spreads like wildfire. Coronavirus spreads like wildfire, and as we well know from the studies and all the reporting, the case fatality rate is far larger than the case fatality rate associated with influenza. So we're still somewhere around that 3% figure in terms of case fatality rate associated with coronavirus. It seems to be holding pretty steady there. Some cases it's more, some estimates it's more. And of course, unfortunately, we're only dealing with confirmed cases. So one might imagine how many people have actually passed away of coronavirus, undiagnosed, untested, unconfirmed. That could be a frightening number, actually, based on what we know today. As of right now, if you call the doctor's office or the COVID-19 hotline and explain your symptoms, in most states, if I'm not mistaken, I know it's the case here in my state, you're going to be asked, have you been around anyone who's been tested positive for coronavirus, or have you been out of the country? And if neither of those two things apply to you, then initially you're going to be told you're not eligible to take the test. So that's just a little speed bump in the process in terms of expediting the efforts to identify positive coronavirus cases. And it's unfortunate because countries who've been hit really hard by these pandemics before, like South Korea, they put 4 different companies into manufacturing tests right away, went out and about as proactively as you can do, started testing potential cases, then started tracking who those cases have been in contact with, all the way to the point of using the cell phone data to determine who was in close proximity to this person at a given point in time, then going out and reaching out to those people and testing them as well, and then taking the efforts to make separation measures between people. So you do several things when you act that proactively. One of the most important things, perhaps, is to keep people who you identify as having the virus away from, of course, all other people if possible, but certainly away from members of your population that may be vulnerable to being hit the hardest by this particular virus, like your folks with underlying condition or your folks who are on up there in age, whatever the case may be. If you know who's got it early on, you can identify your areas of greatest vulnerability and perhaps put measures in place to even protect them. We can go on from there. South Korea selling face masks at the post office for $1 a piece, limit 5 per person. Their efforts have been over the top. And of course, face masks, we spent how many months here in the US talking about how they don't protect you. Well, that's great. They don't protect you from getting it, but they definitely catch a lot of the spit and moisture that's coming out of your mouth, which is spreading out whatever viral load you have in your throat. And from that standpoint, they contain who it is you give it to some extent. So the effectiveness of face mask, totally underrated in the United States. And it's there's other countries who've demonstrated that employing all possible measures is the way to go. And washing your hands and singing happy birthday is probably not real high up on the employing all possible measures scale. But in any event, aggressive actions are being taken now. And let's hope this containment thing works quite well. Because what you'll see if you run this same numerical process in relation to cases in the United States, you'll see after 90 days 150,000 deaths. Probably deaths happening so quickly that they can't even all be tested for coronavirus in time. I don't know if we're up to 20,000 tests a day or not, but South Korea was up to that number a long time ago in relation to how long this has been an issue. I mean, they at least a month ago, I think they were doing 20,000 tests a day. So let's see if I can find that particular shot. And this is, of course, off of the Worldometer website as well. The figure associated with the total amount of influenza deaths per year, 290,000, 650,000, corresponds to 795 to 1,781 deaths per day. So, as I pointed out, coronavirus is getting ready to pass that up quite quickly in 7 days. And due to the exponential growth of the virus and the death toll, unfortunately, we're going to see the coronavirus run off and leave the death rate associated with seasonal influenza. And just to also mention one other thing that was that I heard, it was disinfo, par for the course on YouTube. There is indeed a specific protocol for testing the SARS-CoV-2 virus, specific to the SARS-CoV-2 virus. And it is not true. It is not true when someone says they're not even testing for SARS-CoV-2 and that they're simply counting flu-related deaths in some form of a grand conspiracy. I would imagine that grand conspiracy involves the entire world at this point, which is about as outlandish as you can get. But that's the kind of stuff that gets said on YouTube, and it usually gets said by about the same folks every time. All right, so there's the bad news, and everybody hang in there, because you just can't last for absolutely ever as long as the containment measures and self-distancing measures are adhered to. That will be the only thing that can slow this down that we know of yet, and that is staying away from each other. All right, catch y'all later. Oh, one last thing with regards to the United States specifically. As you can see here, we had 57 new deaths reported yesterday. That's what this is showing, is yesterday. It's not showing the date today. At this hour, we have 10 new deaths today, but as of yesterday, we had a total of 57 new deaths, bringing us to a total of 207. We're actually at 217 at this point in time as I speak, but that is obviously a much larger jump than just a 10% day-over-day increase. So in the U.S., we're going to see some rapidly escalating numbers. And we can only speculate as to why that might be, but there may have something to do with people who have been sick, who have been in intensive care, who have just passed away. Their test results haven't come back. They haven't been able to properly label their cause of death, and they do so when they get those test results back. And that's, of course, one of the benefits of getting all this testing underway. That's just my theory. I don't really know for sure exactly why that is, but we saw some similar rapid jumps early on in the measurements when these death totals were initially starting to get posted back in late January, I think it was, on the chart I showed earlier. But or it was early January, I guess. Either way, I have to go look, but it's too late in the morning to think about that. But we're going to stick with the regular 10% daily increase in change and take a look at the point in time in which the USA will now see more deaths related to COVID-19 than is related to influenza on a daily basis. And the figures on daily deaths in the United States related to influenza range between about 130 deaths a day to as high as about 430, 440 deaths a day. The statistics I glanced at on that showed 22,000 to 55,000 influenza-related deaths since October 1, I believe it was. It was 127 days of measurement that was indicated. So the result was about, like I said, 120, 130 deaths a day, up to about 440. So we're going to look at how long it takes to get to about 440 deaths a day here in the United States at a 10% increase day over day. And the answer is 29. I've already done it. It's right here. So 217 is the starting point, multiplied times 1.1, and that is 29 times. And it brings us to a total of 3,442 deaths. And if I back off that last multiplier, you see it drop down to 3129. So that's actually 330. So maybe it's actually an even 30 days that goes on here. 3442 to 3786. All right, so it's 31 days or 32 days. Depending on which end of the spectrum you want to call the target. 130 deaths a day or 440 deaths a day. So somewhere between, 25 and 32 days into this, the U.S. will have more people passing away, unfortunately, as a result of SARS-CoV-2 than they currently do related to influenza. And that's using the 10% growth figure. So hopefully the self-distancing measures and the lockdown measures and these things that are being implemented with good reason will prove to slow this down and minimize these fatalities. Because if 60% of the population winds up affected by this, and 20% of the cases are serious, even 15% of the cases are serious, depending on what figures you go off of, the need for hospitalization far outweighs the medical system's capacity in this country. And you basically don't get a chance to treat these patients because you don't have the manpower. Even if you put in place all the temporary beds in the world, and you bring in the National Guard and military and these kind of people, and those people in there that are medically trained, I think you're going to run out of people to treat all the sick individuals. Again, that's if 60% of the population was affected. You can do the math on all that, but that's what I've got for now. So it's not good news, and I will catch y'all later.